be like, no, why was it so easy? Okay. So basically what you're going to do is kind of what I was showing that other student. Start with the top of the cake, okay? And we'll make the top of the cake a different color. But I can come down.
So you just make like an oval?
Just an oval, yeah. And so then I'm going to take, and you can just watch because I'll have this video so you can follow along. And then I'm just going to take the sides of this oval and make a point here. Turn that into a corner. Bring that up. All right, so now I have, so even just like that, okay, it looks more, these are rounded rectangles, okay? But I could also do something like this where the top of the cake gets a little bit brighter because it's going to face the light a little bit. So I'm just going to lighten it up just a touch. Okay, and then from there, all you do is you just go down and out and throw it behind. And then you can do that again. Down and out and throw it behind.
Okay. It looks so much better.
And now you've got like the basics of a cake. Now you can come in and you can kind of adjust these if you want. You know, they can get thinner or whatever. But the basic idea of a cylinder is that the top is facing a different direction than the sides are. So that's one thing. If you do it down like that, that's one way to do it. The other way to do it would be is if it was like up, and the only way to, or the only thing you need to do like that is like that, and now the curve shows that we're looking up at it as if it's higher than we are.
Gotcha.
And then you can just, do a series of those things like this, and the only difference would be that instead of putting it behind, you'd leave it in front, because then the lower tiers are actually covering the top tiers.
Got it.
Okay? So either one of those. Okay. Same concept with this, except it's a little bit harder to do. Okay? So, first off, let's just take this over here so that we can work on it. We'll make it super big. Like that. All right. So, we've got this one. I'm going to move it over here. Now, this is showing that, because I can see the bottom of that curve, it's showing that I'm looking down on it. This is lower than me, right? And so, this doesn't show that, and neither does this.
Okay.
Right? And so you do a very similar thing, but you can kind of cheat it. You can say, if this is this angle, then I can take that. Let's ungroup this. And we'll get rid of this. And I'll deal with that in a minute. But I can take this circle, and I can just click and drag. And that'll give me that, throw that behind. But then I can say, but it's going to go into the cup, right? So I can grab this one. Okay, and bring that down, add another anchor point with plus, convert this from a curve to a corner, Shift-C, A to move that single anchor point. Okay, so now it's going to kind of feel like that. And then I can take this, I can bring it down, and I can have that give us the top of this cupcake. Okay, and so before we do that, let's make a square. Okay, we'll make that square pink. And the only real difference between this square and the cupcake shape is it tapers in. So I can grab this anchor point, move it in a little bit, and I can grab this anchor point and move it in a little bit. That's not quite right. And so now what I do is I can take this shape and use my shape builder tool and cut it. Okay, and then I can take this shape, I can come down here, and if I shrink this down, well, I hold Shift and Alt, eventually, if we did this right, we can get that to kind of match up, and you can just add it to the bottom.
Got it.
And now it's starting to get that way, right? Okay. So you can come in and be really precise with this and make sure that it lines up and all that. And here's a trick. This is a cool trick. I'm just going to copy this top part, just this one. Okay, so I'm going to go copy, paste. So now we just have this line. Okay. If you go to Effect, Distort and Transform, Zigzag.
It'll make it zigzag.
Yeah.
Oh.
Right? And you
That
can
would've been so
choose
nice.
you can choose how much or how little and how frequently that happens.
Okay.
Right? And so you can kind of just dial that in however you want it.
Mhm.
And then you can go Object, Expand Appearance. Because right now notice the blue line, that stroke,
Mhm.
the pink line isn't actually following the path because we have this effect put on it. As soon as we hit Object, Expand Appearance, now it does. And so now, if you want to, you could use this to cut this shape out. So you could use this like this.
Mhm.
We'll make it like a different color. And you could use like your shape builder tool or something to come in here and cut like that. Right? And so now you actually have that there.
Okay.
Okay, so then you just make sure that like your cupcake actually like, you know, it doesn't like come in, it's gonna fill,
goes down,
it's gonna
yeah.
fill in, it's gonna fit into that spot. And then if you want to push it further, I like that you're doing this tone on tone thing. The cherry's looking good. The stem looks a little weird.
Okay.
Probably have this be like that. And so, sorry, it's grouped. Double click. Just grab that. Like that is going to be a little bit better. It's usually darker on the outside.
Okay.
The reason for that is when it's lighter on the outside rim, it's kind of saying that it's transparent and backlit. Otherwise, almost everything is usually darker on the edges. Okay, but if you're going to do that there, you should also do that on these. And so you can come in, make a copy of those, and then add this stroke to your copy. You can combine all those into a single shape.
So that it goes around everything.
And then you just put it around like that. Okay, if that's what you want to do.
Okay.
But if you do it somewhere, you need to do it the rest of the places as well.
Mhm.
Another thing that you can do is you can come in, you don't have to, you can come in and you can create, you know, little bits of shadow. So if I wanted like something like this, I could come over, grab both of these, shape builder tool, grab this part, and just darken that a little bit. And now you've got
I bought the sandwich today.
Nice.
right.
Yeah.
So you can kind of do that, and then you just grab like this cherry. Looks pretty sweet there on the top.
Like awesome.
Okay, and then maybe you say, you know, well, this cherry would actually cast a little bit of a shadow, so I'm going to grab this part. I'm going to add an anchor point. I'm going to add an anchor point here, and then I'm going to delete, delete, delete. And then I can kind of curve this out like that, so it kind of hits that. And now it looks like there's like a shadow that's being cast by the cherry. You know, and then you add something like this. You know, that type of thing. You just gotta cover it then. Or whatever. So yeah, lots of fun stuff like that.
So much stuff.
Okay, let's look. Let me pause this. Alright, so your ice cream cone. This cone is actually exceptionally complex. And so the first thing that we need to do is, the symbol system of my brain is probably going to tell me the wrong stuff. And so I'm going to go look at pictures of ice cream cones. All right, and so if I look at these, what I'm actually seeing is I'm seeing that the grid part is raised, right? And so it's darker in the square, but it's not consistently darker. If my light source in this one is coming from the upper left-hand corner, you can kind of see that it's brighter and then it casts a shadow, right? And so we're going to try to do something like that. So first off, let's grab a couple different reference photos so that we're not copying any one, but so that we can kind of see how it works. Yeah, give me that one too. Stop asking me that. There we go. I saw another one that was good. Now I don't want to do something like this. I don't want to copy something like this because this is somebody else's illustration, and they've already made a bunch of decisions that I don't understand yet. So this is another one. Okay, so now that we've got these, come over here, we'll spread them out. Okay, get rid of that. And you guys go here and here. Doesn't matter if they're pixelated because we're just learning from them. All right. So what I'm seeing is I'm actually seeing that if we could define these shadows in a pattern, that it would actually help quite a bit. Like this one, if we just look at one of these squares, okay, I could do something like this. I could say, give me a square, take this and come down like that and bring this over. And that defines what I'm seeing here in the shadow. Maybe this part bulges out or something. Right, but for the most part, that's kind of what I'm seeing. It's not so much the lines, it's the shadows that are defining it. And so, if we did something like that, could be kind of interesting. Now, you could do that one of two ways. One way is like this. I'm going to take the shape I already made. And we'll grab it and bring it over here. And let's make it black. This is one way to do it. And we'll go Object, Pattern, Make. Object, Pattern, Make. And this will make a grid pattern for us. And so I've got videos on how this works, but the gist of it is wherever it leaves, so I'll show you in a color how this works. So if I make a circle, and that circle is purple, okay, and I dim these, okay, so the dimmed ones, wow, that's too much, like 50%. Okay, so this is my original one. Because it leaves the left side, it's going to enter the right side. That's how it works. Whichever side it leaves, it shows up on the opposite. And so if I put it on the top, it shows up on the bottom. If I put it on the top right, it shows up in the bottom left.
Okay.
Right? And so that's kind of how that works. So I can take this, I can rotate it, and then I can start kind of adjusting it. Either the shape itself or the tile. But if I do something like this and actually rotate it this way at a diagonal, let's try that. That's not bad. Then when I click done, what it's actually going to do is it's actually going to add that pattern, let me zoom out, to my swatch panel. So I can come in here and let's get rid of all these crazy lines. Okay, so now we've got our cone, and I'm going to copy, paste in front. Now we're going to copy our cone. And in my swatch panel, I now have that pattern that I did. Okay. Now, if I'm like, oh, I don't like that, there's two things I could do. One thing, double click on my scale tool. And my scale tool, if I click uncheck transform objects and leave transform patterns checked, then what I can do is I can increase and decrease. I might have to select it first. I don't know why it's not working. There we go. Okay, so double click. There we are. All right. So no transform object, but yes transform patterns. And then I can increase or decrease this. Okay. So I can do that. But if I'm like, actually, I want that shadow to be on the left, and I want it to be brown, I can go over here to and I double click on the swatch. That's my new pattern, and I can come back in and I can edit it.
Okay.
So I can come in and I can say, I want this to be that way, and I want it to be brown, and then I click done, and it will edit anything that had that applied to it.
Okay.
So I can put it on. So that's one way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Another way to do it is, instead of putting that all the way around, we could just do it on the shadows. Okay? And so if we said, I just want to indicate the idea of that, but not have it cover the whole thing. So let's double click in here again, and we'll delete that. And I'm going to take this, and I'm going to make one that's bigger. So I'm going to come in and I'll make a square. It's not a square, I'll make a square. Okay, and we'll make that square a solid color with no stroke. I'm going to take my white arrow tool, I'm going to bring this down like that. And then let's size this, let's zoom in. That's way too big, so I'm just going to go, but I don't want to go too small. And I do want it to have kind of softer edges. So I'm going to highlight the whole thing, just round everything out. Not that much, but like that. Okay. So now I can take this and I can say, let's put it at an angle. And we can just say, suggest the idea of a waffle cone.
Okay.
We're just telling everybody's mind that's a waffle cone,
Yeah.
right? Rather than having to like depict it. Or we could do the same thing this way. Make these lighter, like this. And then all of a sudden, they become highlights instead of shadows.
Mm-hmm.
So you can kind of do it like that way. Right? And obviously this would go in front. Cast a little bit of a shadow.
So you would just do like three like that just so you get the idea, right?
Yeah, I'm just suggesting the idea of it
Mm-hmm.
more than doing like a heavy version of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, just take this, throw the stroke to the outside.
Got it.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Because what happens here is you've got little bits of trap space, little tangents,
Yeah.
little, it's hard to like terminate everything. So if you just simplify it to how do I show like this pattern?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like the cartoon brick wall idea,
Mm-hmm.
which is you don't see every brick in a cartoon brick wall. You see like groups of 3 or 5.
Yeah.
And then our mind goes, oh, it's a brick wall.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty much it. Okay, so we'll grab all this. And then you can go to Object, Envelope, Distort, Make with Warp. And that starts bending stuff.
Mhm.
So we can go in here and we can say, give me, I'm trying to figure out, a rise. And then just barely though, just a little bit. Because that's what those actually look like.
Mm-hmm.
Just do something like that. And then it'll feel a little bit more authentic. Right, compared to the way I did before.
Yeah.
This is probably too much detail.
Okay.
Maybe give me a half to a third the number of little jaggy lines.
Okay, yeah, I thought about that.
And again, you can just come in and you can just do that by going to Effect, Distort and Transform Zigzag. And then we want corners, and we go Preview, we want them to be smaller, so you can kind of shrink them up, and then you can do a ton of them, or just a few of them. And so you're probably looking at something like that,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can just go Expand Appearance, and then you can come in and you can just connect that. And so we can just come in and say, I'm going to go from here with my pen tool, up, over, down, make it red, put that, and then like shrink it down.
Got it.
Right, something like that. Donut looks great. I like the sprinkles.
Sweet.
This is looking good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you could try to do something along these lines if you wanted to.
Yeah.
This isn't a requirement, but you could just take something like this. And, well, what you could really do is you just say, I'm going to kind of go down like that. And then you take this and this. And we'll just cut that one. And then we don't need this line anymore. And so we can take this and mix it with HSB. And so we'll just go to HSB and just make it slightly darker. And then all of a sudden, it kind of makes it look like this is casting a shadow on your stick. Looks kind of cool. So sometimes stuff like that can be helpful.
Yeah.
So if we just, oops, now come back. And now I'm just showing you stuff. You don't have to do it, but it'll just, if you want to, this stuff can be kind of fun to do.
A little 3D-ish.
Yeah. And it's not hard.
Okay, yeah. That looks a lot better too.
Yeah. So whatever you want. You can do the
Alright.
same thing with this stick.
Mm-hmm.
Super easy. You just kind of take this, drag it over, cut it. There we go. That, take it, drag it over. Don't split it in half unless you want to do that with everything. Do like 2/3 or a third.
Okay.
And then you just grab it, cut it. Grab this one, make it darker.